Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be unboxing, taking a first look, and reviewing the IsInWheel V8 electric skateboard from IsInWheel. This is a budget, more toy-like electric skateboard, currently selling for $429.99. So starting with my customer experience, the board arrived within a week and came double boxed with a thick standard cardboard box on the outside and a more decorated graphic box on the inside. Overall, the board came very well packaged. Upon opening the green graphic box, the first thing on top was the board itself, and then under the board were all of the accessories included. The first accessory included is the instruction/user manual, which is always important to read before taking the board for a first ride. Next is the remote control, which is a pretty standard one found across a lot of these budget electric skateboards. I don't particularly like this one. I do find it a little bit too big, bulky, and awkward to hold, and it does feel a little bit cheap too. Third is a charger, which is a standard 10S charger that charges at 2 amps. Pretty typical across a lot of these budget electric skateboards as well. Included with the charger is also a standard US wall power adapter. Next, there is a T-tool as standard with pretty much every single electric skateboard. And then lastly, there is a USB-C cable which is used to charge the remote controller. Here are a couple shots of all of the accessories included with the IsInWheel V8 electric skateboard. So now getting to the actual electric skateboard itself and my initial impressions, just taking the board out of the box and getting a first look, the board feels like it's been made as more of a toy-esque product because of the graphics on the bottom and also just the overall feeling. All of the components included appeared to be pretty standard cheap components used across a lot of these budget electric skateboards, which is expected. Moving into the exact parts used on the board, the first is the deck, which is 36.5 inches long and 8 3/4 inches wide. The deck is made from 8-ply maple. The deck features a very slight radial concave and comes with grip tape with an IsInWheel logo that spans across the back half of the deck. Another notable feature on the top of the deck are these CNC top-mounted truck plates, which I think look really good and complement the board well. The wheels used on the board are these 105mm crossover-like wheels. The trucks are these standard 8-inch wide RKP longboard trucks. The rear trucks are hub motor specific trucks that hold the hub motors, and speaking of those motors, this board utilizes two 600-watt hub motors for a combined power output of 1,200 watts. The hub motor sleeves also match the front wheels with the 105mm size and crossover tread. Moving on to the enclosures on this board features a split enclosure setup with the front enclosure holding the battery and the rear enclosure holding the ESC. The front enclosure utilizes a lunchbox-like shape and a design that holds a swappable 10S 2P 185 watt-hour battery made from 18650 lithium-ion cells. The swappable battery design is one of my favorite parts about this board because it allows for more range if desired. The battery can be easily removed by pinching the two flaps on the sides of the enclosure and then disconnecting the connector between the battery and the board. A new battery can then be hot swapped in the board by connecting the battery lead to the connector on the board and then clicking the battery back into place. Swapping out the battery is actually super easy and super fast with the design, which is something that I really like. My only concern with this more budget-like design is how fast the clips wear out and then how easy it is for the battery to fall out after that if there's not much grip on them. It hasn't proved to be an issue for me so far, and it's been very reliable. Overall, a huge fan of the swappable battery design so far, and if you're looking for a budget swappable battery board, this is a solid option. Another thing about this board is the charge port, which is located on the front of this front enclosure as well, but because it's located on the enclosure, the battery must be plugged into the board in order to be charged. Moving on to the rear enclosure holds the ESC, which is the Lingy ESC, a very common ESC across a lot of these budget electric skateboards. For whatever reason, this particular rear ESC enclosure design just reminds me of a toy with the way that the logos and the graphics and the LEDs are on it. I think it looks fine, but it just reminds me of a toy just coupled with the graphic on the center of the deck. Overall, all of the electronics included on this board are standard for a board in this price range, so it's what you would expect. The enclosures aren't the most elegant enclosures I've seen. I find them to be pretty boxy. The swappable battery design is nice, but that does come at the cost of just not looking as elegant as some other options out there. The rear enclosure coupled with the graphics on the bottom of the deck just remind me a little bit more of a toy product that's designed for a teenager or a young kid. That's not a bad thing, that's just the aesthetic that I find that this board has. The last component included on the board, which isn't too typical across these budget boards, are these LED lights built into the front and rear enclosure, which I think look awesome. They're a great feature, especially for safety and just aesthetics at night, and I'm a huge fan of them. It's also super cool that they can be turned on via the remote controller by holding on the mode switching button. Just like all of our other review videos, this review portion will be split up into categories detailing each of the various specs on the IsInWheel V8 electric skateboard, starting with top speed, then range, then hill climbing, then acceleration and braking, then ride feeling and comfort, followed by miscellaneous, and then finally a conclusion with our final thoughts on this board. So first up, we have the top speed on this board. The advertised top speed on the V8 is 28 miles an hour according to their website. In all of my top speed tests and experience with the board, the fastest I've been able to go according to the remote is 26 miles an hour, so the top speed does seem to be a little bit overspec'd. The top speed that I achieved was with an 140-pound rider, so I suppose if you're a little bit lighter, you might be able to get up to that 28 mile an hour mark, but just for reference, 140-pound rider, 26 mile an hour top speed is what I got on the board, which is by no means bad. 26 miles an hour on a budget board like this is plenty and fast enough in my opinion. Second up, we have range, and the advertised range on the V8 is 12 miles. On my range test, which was riding pretty aggressively on hilly terrain in 80 Fahrenheit degree weather with an 140-pound rider, I was able to get 7.5 miles of range. So the range is a little bit lower than what they've advertised, but obviously range tests and range is subject to so many different factors. I do believe it's possible to get up to 12 miles of range if you're a lighter rider and you ride much more conservatively, so I don't think their website is necessarily overspec'd, but just be aware that 12 miles is probably a best case scenario listing on their website. Third, moving into the hill climbing ability on this board, which is pretty much the same as every other budget hub motor electric skateboard that I've tried out there. It makes it up every hill that I encounter on a daily basis. It just does so at a much slower rate than any of the more expensive electric skateboards out there. So essentially just expect to be going 6-7 miles an hour up any steep hill that you encounter. If you get to some of the crazy steep ones, 25 degrees, 30 degrees, the board's not going to make it up. But anything below that, the board will surely make it up. It just won't do it very fast. Fourth up, we have the acceleration and braking, which I'd say is about average compared to the other boards in this price range. The acceleration and braking curves are not bad by any means, but there are a couple boards that I can think of that have slightly smoother, more intuitive, and slightly stronger acceleration and brakes. The one thing that I've noticed regarding the acceleration is that it can be a little bit jerky off the line in the highest speed mode. It's not even that the acceleration is that strong on this board, it's just that the acceleration immediately when you throttle in the highest speed mode is just a little bit jerky and not super smooth. After that initial burst, the board is completely smooth, the acceleration and the brakes are completely fine, but that's just something that I've noticed that has to do slightly with the tuning of the ESC, and it's not a huge deal. As far as the brakes go, the brakes are super smooth, but the one problem with them is that they aren't super strong, so if you slam on the brakes going full speed, it takes quite a while for this board to actually slow down. Here's a video of me going down a gentle incline at around 15-20 miles an hour and then slamming on the brakes. And from the video, it doesn't even look like I'm braking or slowing down at all, and that just goes to show the strength of these brakes. Here's another video on a slightly more gentle incline, and as you can see, it takes quite a while for this board to actually come to a complete stop. Overall, the acceleration and braking are average for what you'd expect in a $430 electric skateboard. Fifth up, we have the ride feeling and the comfort of this board, which I'd say is pretty good considering the $430 price range. The 105mm crossover wheels coupled with the semi-flexible deck do a pretty good job at eliminating all the cracks, bumps, vibrations that would get sent to your legs otherwise, so it's pretty comfortable in that respect. Though I'm saying that this board is pretty comfortable to ride, that's in respect to its price point. It still isn't great compared to more expensive options out there. Obviously, after about 5 miles or so, my feet do start to hurt and vibrate along with the road. There's only so much that hub motors can do to dampen the vibrations. Overall, good for a $430 board, but not great for an electric skateboard overall. When it comes to the carviness of the board and the trucks used, the trucks on this board are pretty cheap cast electric skateboard trucks, and it really shows in the way that the board rides. Another noticeable thing about the way this board rides is how narrow the deck is. This deck is super narrow for an electric skateboard deck, which is one of the reasons that I think that this board is more tailored for kids who might have smaller feet. At 8 3/4 inches wide at its widest point, it's definitely manageable, but if you have bigger feet, it's definitely going to start to get harder to ride. The first thing that I want to talk about moving into miscellaneous topics are the lights on this board, which I think are an awesome feature while riding at night. Just a super fun, cool aesthetic thing to have on your board, and it's also great for safety so that others can see you while riding. Second thing that I want to talk about in terms of miscellaneous is the swappable battery, which is a point I just want to hit on again, and the fact that it's super uncommon for a board as cheap as this to have swappable batteries, so it's really nice that this board has this feature. The third thing I want to touch on this section is the off-road ability of this board with the 105mm honeycomb crossover wheels. This board is by no means meant to be an all-terrain electric skateboard, but it can handle grass, compact dirt, and light gravel trails. It's just not very comfortable. I'd recommend sticking to the streets or light grass if you're planning on using this board. The 105mm honeycomb wheels are less for off-roading and more for just dampening the ride feeling on the board. There's not a whole lot of boards that are this cheap that come with these 105mm crossover wheel options. In fact, I think this might be the cheapest board in the world that comes with this option stock. So that's just something to note and be aware of if you're interested in these bigger 105mm option wheels. This is probably the cheapest board with that option. So here are my concluding thoughts on the IsInWheel V8 electric skateboard. Overall, it's a solid pick with plenty of interesting features for just $429.99 at the moment. The specs are in the range for what you'd expect for a $400 to $500 electric skateboard, but where this board really kind of kicks it up a notch is in terms of the extra features it has, being the swappable battery and the built-in LED lights, which I think are something that if you're interested in, could be the reason to purchase this board. I think that there are slightly better options in terms of specs and ride feeling in this price range and some of the other brands and budget boards I've reviewed in the past, but if some of these special features matter more to you, I definitely recommend taking a look at this board. If you guys are interested in learning more about the IsInWheel V8, I will leave a link to it in the description below, and if you have any questions or comments, let us know in the comments section below and I'll make sure to get back to you guys. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for lots of other electric skateboard reviews. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and we will see you guys in the next one.